Today we came out to see for ourselves the history of Rhyolite, Nevada. And this was once a booming town back in the 1800s. Population of 2,000 people. Lots of gold was discovered out here. And as usual, once the gold boom kind of started drizzling away, everything just basically got abandoned. It's just outside of Beatty, Nevada. Interesting history leading back to, and what's most interesting is it leads back to and is tied to Washington State, in the Ballard, Washington area, where a family's daughter who had ventured out here and was tied to the red light district ended up being murdered, and eventually her body was sent back home so that her family could bury her. And so I think again of what it had to have been like, the grief involved in obviously having to bury a child, having to live with that grief, and then also the stigma behind what she did when she was here to make a living, and the shame that her parents felt over that. So she was not placed in a cemetery plot near them. And as a matter of fact, from the history, from what we can tell, her headstone does not even have her legitimate name and birth date. I think her first name might be right, but I don't recall for sure. But you know, when you think about families that went through the Great Depression, went through just trying to survive, and they also endured losing children, the loss of a child. And you think of back then, so many of them just had to suffer in silence, especially the parents and siblings. Many of them really didn't have a lot of resources, possibly. Now, from what we were told, her parents, part of their guilt or embarrassment of what their daughter did for a living here was that her parents were tied to the Christian Science religion, so that dictated some of how they handled her death. And just from what I've pieced together, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they probably did not tell too many people about the death of their daughter. And so, again, for them at the time, their religious beliefs did aid in helping them cope with some of the grief I can only imagine over the loss of their child. But still in all, it's definitely not something that any parent ever envisions, that when they have a child that they're going to outlive that child. So again, just coming out and putting things into perspective, looking over this ghost town as it is now referred to, just thinking about what they went through. And obviously that's what these white ghost-like figures represent, no doubt, is those that lost their lives here. Some of the grief that they went through. Just by looking at these figures, it does look like they are comforting some that have dealt with grief and sorrow and loss. And so, anyway, it's just interesting to come and kind of reflect on what many go through. Just trying to etch out a living for themselves and their family. So anyway, this is #healing with grief, #follow my journey. If you find this video helpful in any way, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe it. Subscribe to my channel, and as always, thank you for all the support.